Hi, everyone. Welcome to A New World, New Mind. Today's topic is going to be about depression and finding hope. I am your host, Stephani Costanza, founder of Drew's Movement. So I wanted to really base today's topic off of, I've had a lot of phone calls and a lot of people telling me that they've been feeling very depressed and very overwhelmed with everything going on around the world. This is extremely expected. I want you guys all to know that, but I wanted to dive deeper into this. So with everything going on around the world, depression and feeling overwhelmed is kind of the new normal, and so much going on, and there's really no escaping it, right? Especially for all of us who live in big cities like LA or New York, it's kind of everywhere. So since this year started, it's been a little chaotic and hectic, but I want to kind of talk about prior to 2020. We as humans were already suffering from feelings, and we're already suffering from depression and feeling overwhelmed with different things happening in our lives. We felt depressed. We had breakups. Some of you were faced with divorces, illnesses, loss of jobs. You know, people were bullied before all this. People were judged. And so before 2020 happened, we as human beings were already going through a lot of emotion. Life was already hard prior to 2020. We're all going through our own personal situations, aside from the pandemic, aside from protesting, and anything else that's going on around the world. We all have our personal lives filled with traumas. You know, some of us have had traumas the last 3 years, 4 years, when we were children. You know, we've all suffered through things like this, pain and confusion. We feel a sense of uncertainty right now, which is also extremely frightening, right? So today, what I want to do is really dive into pre-2020. Okay, I want you to think about your first heartbreak. Okay, your first heartbreak ever, whatever age it was at. I want you to think about, for those who've been divorced, when that happened in your life. Okay, the first time you ever felt that. I want you to feel, for those of you who have lost somebody from death, that first moment of what you felt. This is all prior to 2020. Okay, the first time you ever suffered, or someone around you suffered or was diagnosed with an illness, cancer, anything, what you felt in that moment. Okay, the first time you suffered a loss of job. All these things, okay, we've all suffered from. For some of you, those were your first, you've had a first for most of those. Okay, you were like checking off that list, like, yeah, I actually suffered through all of that before. And some of you, depending on your age, maybe you've suffered through one of those things, two of those things, right? But the point is that regardless of how many times you have suffered this, I want you to think about how you felt. You felt hopeless. You probably lost your faith. You felt depressed and overwhelmed, right? You felt all these things before. But I am here to remind you that what you are feeling right now isn't your first time. right? That's not your first time. What you're feeling right now, the depression or feeling overwhelmed with everything going on around the world, this isn't your first time. You've felt those things before, okay? And maybe this might be your 1,000th time that you felt that. And maybe your 100th time, who knows, depending on your age, you probably felt, this is maybe your millionth time that you felt sad, depressed, angry, went through a breakup, you know? For some of you, you've been through breakups in your 40s, 50s, 60s. I mean, you know, this is not new. But regardless, it's not your first time feeling these things. You got through it the first time. Like when I think about my first breakup, I'm like, dang, that sucked. It was a horrendous time in my life, but you got through it. And then after that, every breakup seemed easier. Okay. Same thing happens with everything else in your life. So as human beings, I want us to all remember, especially right now with everything going on, guys, we are survivors of pain. We are all survivors of pain. This is not the first time you've felt these things before. It's extremely overwhelming, but we are survivors of depression, right? Like there's some people out there, especially some of you who are watching, that you've been depressed years. You have felt this way before, okay? But you're surviving. You're surviving it. You're getting through it. You're pushing through. And this is where I wanted to kind of help restore hope with this episode of depression and combine the two, just like we do with emotions and logic. I kind of wanted to combine a little bit of hope with how you're feeling with the depression and overwhelming feeling. You know, you need to remember that we're all survivors of pain. This is just another stepping stone that we're going through, and it's overwhelming. There's really nowhere to hide right now from everything that's going on. The pandemic especially, you know, we're still seeing numbers changing, you know, the protests happening, the world is changing. So it's very overwhelming for those of you who've had these issues before. And you shouldn't feel bad about that. You shouldn't be feeling horrible about the way you're feeling pre-2020. Just because there's other things going on around the world doesn't mean you can't feel the past emotions. You know, traumas happen whether we like it or not. And it's not waiting for a pandemic to happen. It's not waiting for a protest to happen. Traumas happen every day of people's lives, and it's uncontrollable. These are things we cannot control. But I just want to remind you that these are not your first time, okay? So I'm gonna help you restore your hope in what you're feeling. Now, let's talk about 2020 real quick, okay? I want you to think about 2020 as a huge megaphone or an amplifier, okay? For those of you who are feeling depressed before this, like for instance, I'm going to use myself as an example in today's topic, okay? I was having a trauma from my brother dying, and his anniversary is coming up next month. And so I'm still feeling what happened to me 3 years ago right now. And 2020 is amplifying that tremendously. So I want you to not look at 2020 or the things that are happening around you as a defeat or worsening your, you know, depression or you're falling deeper into a hole. I want you just to think of the world holding a megaphone or an amplifier, and it's just bringing out what you were already feeling. Okay, it's just amplifying it in a sense where, you know, it's not new. It's just making what you were feeling before stronger. And what happens with that is it creates overwhelming sense of panic, and you start to feel like you've jumped into a hole. For instance, again, I'm going to use myself as an example. I'm going to share with you what happened last night to me. I just got back to LA, and because of the things that I was feeling prior to 2020, with everything happening around us, you know, the pandemic, I had to get tested for COVID recently. I was super scared because I stayed in a hotel, and, you know, I was feeling extremely overwhelmed last night. And I got into this hole of just negativity. Because I'm a very goal-oriented person. So I started to feel like everything in the world was just negative. I had to call my mom, and I had to have her help me get out of this negative. Mind you, I have my bad days too, right? Like everybody who suffers some type of way, we all have our bad days. I had mine recently. So I had to have somebody else help me see the light and the hope, which is why today's topic is so important to me, because it even happens to me, the person who's like the face of mental health for Drew's Movement. It happens to all of us. You know, I am feeling more and more every day as my brother's anniversary comes up on 4th of July. I feel more and more upset and depressed, and things prior to 2020 are surfacing. And 2020 is amplifying my feelings. And it's very easy to get into a negative pattern and a negative hole, right? Just like what I witnessed and what I went through yesterday. I felt like everything was completely crashing down on me. I was upset about a current relationship situation. I was upset about my brother's passing. I was reliving his passing. I was upset about all the things, okay? And I couldn't seem to find hope in any of it. But then when you think about it, I had to sit back and think about how I felt when my brother's first passed 3 years ago and how I thought there was no hope back then. And it made me realize this isn't the first time that I feel helpless or hopeless. This is maybe the 20th millionth time that I feel this way. And it made me wake up and realize that this is just another stepping stone. It's temporary. We're going to get through it. Like I said, we're survivors of pain, right? We're survivors of emotions. We're survivors of things happening all the time. This is not the first time this has happened in the world. Okay, history repeats itself. And I'm sure the people who went through it the first time felt the same way. They probably felt like they lost hope and faith and depressed and overwhelmed because everything that we're going through is overwhelming. Relationships are extremely hard right now, whether it's, any type of relationship, work relationship, any type of relationship, they're very difficult because what we're seeing right now as people is that before, and especially in marriages and relationships, one person was, if someone was having something happening in their life, the other person was there to be able to help them. Right now, with everything going on, the pandemic, with every situation, we're all feeling these ways. We're all feeling depressed. We're all feeling overwhelmed. So it's hard to help one another, to see eye to eye. People are bickering, people are arguing, people are not seeing people's opinions and emotions are super high. Okay, so this is all megaphone. This is all the world standing with a megaphone, amplifying, triggering your past. Okay, so it's important to try to see the past situation, how it made you feel, that you got through it in order to restore your hope for right now during 2020. Because the way this year is going, I don't know what's next, but I'm not looking forward to it. But you need to be prepared for anything that comes your way emotionally. We don't know what's going to happen next year. We don't know what's going to happen, futuristically, we don't know what's going to happen. But the thing we do know is that we've already gotten through so much before 2020. You're still here. And the reason that I say this is why I want to really restore your hope is because, suicide has been super high lately too, because when you start to feel overwhelmed by everything and you feel like there's no escape, it's a very slippery slope. Okay. And I don't want anyone feeling that way. So how do we keep from spiraling into a hole like I did last night? Okay. Granted, I had a lot of time on my hands, which doesn't help. So this is where I'm going to take you back to the pandemic days when we were all quarantined. It's extremely important that during this time with everything going on that you stick to your schedule, stick to a pattern of every day doing the same thing. Really, for me especially, I can't watch the news. I can't. I'm very sensitive to energy. I'm very sensitive to negativity because what happened to me last night is exactly what happens. Like my feelings dive right in. So that's why I always try to attach logic with my emotions. And sometimes it's really hard to do that, right? So I want you to realize that, in order to not spiral, we need to stick to things that we do know. I don't watch the news. It's a big trigger for me. I can't sleep. I get anxious. I wake up in a panic attack in the middle of the night. I can't watch the news. What I'd rather do is I'd rather Google, research things. I like to read. I like to listen to podcasts. I like to research new things. Like that is a big trigger list situation for me. I stay away from media. I encourage you to do that. I mean, I'm still educated. I still tiptoe into it, but stay away from any type of negativity that's happening right now, especially if you're like me, who spirals pretty quickly. I want you to take time to, especially like someone like me who's reliving something that tragically happened 3 years ago, it's okay to sit down and have a night where you let it out. Sometimes I have to cry it out. Sometimes I need to feel those things in order to get it out. But as long as you do that in a positive way, don't let yourself spiral. I always know where my breaking point is when I cry about situations like that, right? I have a moment of clarity where I'm like, okay, it's out, time to move forward. A lot of you were doing so many good things like working out during the pandemic, going back to that, doing things around the house, spring cleaning. Like today, I looked at my closet and thought, I should probably do that. So getting involved in your own life, refocusing your energy and time into yourself will help you feel less depressed and less overwhelmed. It's okay. It's not selfish for you to want to put your focus and energy in yourself right now, especially if you're feeling depressed. It's okay to take a moment and want to realign and say, these are my goals. This is what I need to do, regardless of what's happening. It's okay because your mental health comes first, right? It has to, regardless of all the things going on. And it's hard because it's a tough world right now. It's even saying the wrong thing right now can be detrimental, So that's why I encourage all of you who are feeling this way, who are feeling overwhelmed, who are feeling the weight of the world right now. Focus on yourself really helps. Thinking about what you need to feel better. Thinking about what makes you tick again, what makes, you get going. Like, for instance, I really like playing card games or, things like that. Find little simple things. Simplify your life right now. Simplify it. Go on a drive, play a card game on your phone if you don't have anyone around you. Watch your favorite movie. Like, I had to think about that the other day. I'm like, what is my favorite movie? I don't even know anymore. And then I rewatched it when I figured it out. Serendipity happens to be my favorite movie. But, things like that to kind of reorganize your thoughts, reorganize who you are, and remember who you are. It's a little bit, it's depression can really take the focus out of remembering who you are, the things you love, what you're like, what your likes are, what your needs are. And I think getting to know yourself right now will definitely help you with everything that's going on. I don't want you to feel guilty about stuff like that, right? You need to kind of know where you're going. And by the way, like I said before, I can't tell you enough, guys. If you were already suffering from something else prior to 2020, it's okay. It's totally okay. That's why you're feeling so heavy right now. That's why the world feels heavy. And for those of you who are goal-oriented like me, or those of you who are looking forward to this new year and looking for a great job and a career, it's hard because you feel kind of knocked down right now. All your goals are put on hold. And this can be kind of detrimental to your health as well when you feel like nothing you do right now matters. Nothing you do right now is easy, where it used to be prior to 2020. Okay? That's also what's happening to us. We're feeling this sense of nothing else matters right now, right? Everything seems extremely hard to do, especially in a city like Los Angeles and bigger cities. Actually, not even anywhere, really, right? Besides the pandemic, everything's feeling this way. So kind of put yourself back on track by reorganizing your thoughts, reorganizing your beliefs, reorganizing your hope, reorganizing what you love to do. And to center yourself, go back to when you first felt those things. Remind yourself, instill hope in yourself. We always so much focus on who we want to be futuristically. I want to be a CEO of a company. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a multimillionaire with a company, whatever. Okay, we always focus on the future us. And that takes away you focusing on your present self. If you spend so much time thinking about who you want to be instead of making sure that right now, like for instance, if you want to be a CEO of a company, what are you doing right now that's going to help you get there? A lot of people are like, nothing. I've had so many conversations with people where they're like, I envision myself being this, and they're just trying to manifest it. But with manifestation comes action too. You have to take certain steps in order to get to manifest where you want to be. If you're just sitting every day, just reading a Post-it, telling yourself that you're going to be this amazing human, right? And you're going to be a CEO and a millionaire. That's not how it happens. That's not really how manifestation works. You still have to take the time and effort to get where you are. So what you need to do right now is still focus on who you are right now and what you're doing to get to where you want to be. Are you reading books about CEOs? Are you reading biographies about people who own giant companies or the companies that you love? Do you want to work in the hospitality industry? Do you want to one day work with a company like Marriott? Do you know anything about how Marriott was started? These are the type of things that you should fill your time with right now, especially if you feel depressed and overwhelmed by any one of those emotions that I told you, okay? Because who you were before 2020 has now been interrupted a little bit, especially in the job world, right? Like, think about this. I was in the hospitality industry, and let me tell you, it's a little obsolete right now, okay? It's going to take some time for us to rebuild this. But that's okay. You just have to realign yourself. You could still, like, if the hospitality industry isn't working, okay, well, what is something new that I could do and use those skills to find a new job? to find a new world. Because right now you can do anything you want, right? Jobs are endless now that things are opening up. You can really become who you want, but what are you doing to help yourself? Okay, again, do you know anything about these companies? Fill your time and energy with learning right now, with learning how to get yourself out of this depression, learn how to do new things, right? Learn how to fight for what you want, okay? Because your future self, if you do want to be that CEO, if you do want to be that doctor, if you do, depends on what you do right now. You have to help yourself. And having depression, a lot of you are like, yes, that sounds easy, but I'm depressed all the time. I don't know where to start. I don't know how to get up. I don't know how. I'm just completely overwhelmed. Okay, well, that's what I mean by restoring your hope. You felt that same way before, guaranteed, when you went through a breakup. You felt that way before, guaranteed, when something else tragic happened in your life. What did you do back then? Think about it. What did you do back then when you went through that divorce? Did you rely on your friend? Granted, we're a little bit, be resourceful. Right now, even though you can't go out, things are opening up a little bit, especially here, but if you can't go out, be resourceful. Be resourceful. This is extremely resourceful. Has all the tools you need. It's even hard for people to make excuses right now, but I'm not saying that depression is an excuse. I'm saying that you can do anything you want to do to help yourself get out of this depression. Just depends on what type of person you are. For me, I sometimes need help. I have to call someone to restore a little bit, get me out of that mindset. If that's your type of personality, find someone, unbiased opinion, or someone that you trust that you can call when you're feeling like that. If you're the type of person who helps yourself get out of depression or snap out of it when you're upset by taking a shower, taking a bath, putting a mask on, self-care by yourself, do those things. You need to figure out what type of person you are in order to help yourself. Because one thing that we've learned right now, guys, is that at the end of the day, you are only responsible for restoring the hope that you have. No one else is going to help you do this. I recently had a conversation with someone who was very reliant on a relationship to help them get out of this mental state of depression and loneliness, and it doesn't work that way. It doesn't. It actually makes you a worse partner for people because you're so reliant on them that if one day they have a bad day, you're not going to know what to do. So relying on yourself is huge, huge. It's huge. I can't even tell you how important this is. You can restore your own hope and faith very easily by remembering how you did it in the first place, what kind of person you are. The things we fill our time with is what's going to make you who you are, right? So when you get into that spiral, you get into that mental state, now you're having anxiety, now you're having a panic attack, and you live alone, you don't have anyone else to sit there and be like, here you go, let me help you out of this hole, right? So right now it's very important to be logical. If you look at this whole 2020 in the sense of, like I told you, just envision a person holding a microphone yelling at you, okay? And motivating yourself to get out of that, understanding what this is, what this year is. Okay, for me, especially when something happens to me, recently something else happened. I'm telling you guys, it's been a week. But when something happens, I kind of get motivated to do better than that person who made me mad, or to build Drew's movement 10 times better, or to a breakup. If I go through a breakup, I used to go to 10 castings that day and nail a modeling job. Like, I always push myself to be like, you know what? Screw you. This is how I'm going to get out of this. And I think as you get older, you kind of lose that, right? You lose that sense of pride and passion. And, we're in our 20s, you're just like, I'm going to show you, right? Like, now when you're older, you're just like, oh my God, who has the time for this? But it's important to stay motivated. You've got to stay motivated. The things that are happening in 2020 are out of our control. Forget it. You can't control any of this. There's no way. Look at what's happened within 6 months, okay? And by the way, it's already been 6 months. We've gotten through a lot, okay? Your depression, you've already gotten through half the year. You always have to tell yourself that you've gotten through these things. Give yourself a gold star. I've talked about this before. In order to restore hope, remind yourself the things you've gotten through over and over and over. This is not the worst thing that's ever happened to me, for sure. And when I'm having a bad day, I just have to constantly remind myself that it's not the worst thing. This is not the worst or scariest thing. Worst or scariest thing was receiving a phone call that my brother killed himself. That was the scariest moment in my life. That was the worst thing that could happen to me. But in order to, you need to remind yourself of these things. And granted, you don't need that bad of a tragedy in order to do this. You know, everything that you're feeling, like I told you, we're survivors of pain. We are survivors of depression. We are survivors from the beginning of time. People have been suffering all the time, since the beginning. Okay, so logic, fill your life with logic. Get rid of your emotions in the sense of reminding yourself why you have the emotions. What is causing your emotion? What is causing you to feel overwhelmed? What feeling are you feeling from this? Are you mad, angry, sad? Which one are you feeling? What is going to make you feel better? And what are you going to do about it? So again, the conversations we had during the pandemic and the quarantine still apply to what's happening right now. All these things still apply, guys. And it takes time to really understand how this works. It takes time to every day be like, okay, today I'm going to do this. Okay, today I'm going to get up and I'm going to go to the grocery store and I'm going to not let this pandemic get me down. I'm going to be very prepared. I'm going to wear a mask. I'm going to educate myself on what's happening with the protests and why they're happening. You know, get to know where you stand on things and don't be afraid to do the things that you need to do to continue living your life. That's huge right now. People are like, I don't even know what to do anymore. You know, your relationships are failing, marriages are failing. You can't go to the grocery store without touching things. You can't, you know, for me in my street, like everything is just not easy right now. Nothing about 2020 has been easy. But you're not alone. Okay. The good thing is that all of us feel this way. All of us are feeling this way. You know, I can't tell you or stress you how many phone calls I've had of people just being like, I don't know what to do anymore. And that's when you just don't. You just don't do. Sometimes you just got to kick back and be like, I need a day to do nothing and relax and turn everything off and eat my favorite food, enjoy a tub of ice cream, and just chill. That's also important, guys. These are all different steps, okay? When you're in your hole, find what helps you get out of it. If you're feeling overwhelmed, take a day to yourself, lock yourself in your apartment or your room, and have a you day, okay? When you're in the middle of feeling overwhelmed or stressed out or scared or crying, remind yourself this is not the first time and that you'll get through it again and have your moment of crying. These are all things that we need to work on, okay? Make checklists every day, you guys. Make checklists. Fill your days with busyness. Don't worry about the rest of the things going on. It's too much, especially if it's too much when you have depression. You know, make your checklist, stick to a routine, keep your self-care up. Take a day for yourself. Remember that these are not the first times. Restore your own hope. Remember that you are your hope. You're the only one who can get yourself right? You're the only one. And by watching this or watching videos or reading, you're already step one. A lot of the people that I sponsor, the progression is amazing. One of the girls recently, you know, she did something that she would have never done before to help her feelings of anger and triggers and her overwhelming feeling of this pandemic. And that's what's important, is taking the first step. Because again, I can't tell you this enough, we were already feeling things before all this happened. We were already feeling it, okay? So again, do not feel bad. Do not feel any type of way about taking yourself into consideration, and don't feel selfish for doing that, okay? Try new things. So today, I'm going to leave you with a very short episode just because I want you to understand and I want you to leave with just breathing in and out, having your faith. Hope is on its way. Guys, it's going to be fine. Take a time to know yourself. Understand that, again, this is not your first time. You were a survivor of pain and suffering, and we will get through this, and everything is going to be okay. Read some books, find new things, turn the TV off, don't watch the news. But again, this is not your first time, and everything is going to be okay. So until next week, I will see you guys then.